fishing, nothing but fishing, talking fishing. If it's facts about fishing that you want to know, then tune in, folks, cause this is the show. We'll show you all the right bait to use, so sit right back, you got nothing to lose. Doesn't really matter if it's trout or carp, flathead, marlin or a gummy shark. Listen to the guys and you can't go wrong. They'll be talking about fishing till the cows come home. Talking fishing, nothing but fishing, we're talking fishing.
Welcome everyone to Talking Fishing, a massive show coming up as always, and what another great week in fishing it has been. The word on everyone's lips at the moment is snapper, and tonight you're going to learn a thing or two about snapper with Paul Hamer, one of the world's leading experts on snapper. He works for Fisheries Victoria and he joins us on the couch very, very shortly. Also tonight, our first kingfish report for the season. That'll get people excited, and we have a look at the modern day travel rods. But before all that, a big welcome to Adam Ring. As always, welcome, Ads.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. And coming off another huge weekend, the weather turned it on for Sunday, and I went for a trip with my old man down on the peninsula, and I reckon there would have been more Victorians out on the water just on Sunday than there was on dry land. There was boats and people everywhere.
It's good. It's a great time of year, isn't it? And I think we've been pretty lucky with the weekend weather too. Lots of weekends with at least one day that's fishable. So
yeah, that's right.
Pretty good little pattern we're on at the moment. A big welcome to Trelly as well. Just 3 more sleeps until Trelly's Tackle Spectacular in Shepparton this Friday night, Trelly.
That's right, yeah.
This Friday night, have I got it right?
You're right, yep. This Friday night in Shepparton, the Tackle Spectacular, and got a little bit of fun there. Guys come along. We run the whole event to clockwork as you expect from me.
Bit of liquid entertainment and a bit of man hugging going on and all that sort of stuff, so it should be pretty good. And a very big welcome to a man regarded as one of the best fisheries scientists in the world. I hope he doesn't mind me saying that. What Paul Hamer doesn't know about snapper isn't worth knowing. Welcome to Talking Fishing, Paul.
Thanks, David. I'm glad the rest of the world isn't watching this show.
Well, the rest of the world's scientists anyway.
Great to be here, and great to meet you two. And looking forward to the show. Yeah,
we do rate you pretty big, and Paul, for people that have been following us in the media, we've done plenty of interviews. I'm back on the old 3SER days and 3AW. We've done a bit. You've certainly come along to some of the talk nights we've had down at Mornington Mazda. 200-300 people in the room, and never before, though, have you been able to show some of the stuff you're going to show tonight, which is just fantastic, because we've actually got some snapper that are how old?
Oh, about 3 to 5 months.
3 to 5 months. Some whiting that are how old?
About 3 months.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I haven't got the jar here, but there's a dozen of them in a little jar like that. So we're going to show you some very small fish, because what Paul does, he actually goes out and nets juvenile fish, and we're going to see a little bit of that through the show, a bit of footage on that, and then virtually predicts what the seasons are in coming years. So pretty good stuff. How long have you worked for Fisheries Victoria?
Gee, it's probably 18 years now.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
Time flies. I remember the first time I met you, and we were talking about how important it is to communicate the science to the public and to the fishers.
Yep.
And the idea of getting out and doing more and finding forums to do it. And, here we are 15 years later.
Live TV. It's 15 years to get
turns, hey.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Just before we get on to a bit more, Trelly's Tackle Spectacular. Have I got that right, Trelly?
Correct.
This Friday night, I think we've got a bit of a slide coming up, but starts at 6:30?
Starts at 6:30 on Friday night at the showgrounds. And if you do come along, it is a really good night. We've got a lot of information, industry information. We've got the forum, Victorian Fisheries Forum, on what you'd like to say to government about access to water or boat ramps, things like that. And $5,000 worth of giveaway prizes, and it's just a really good fun night. And few bargains there too.
And what do you do about tickets, Charlie? Do you prepay, or can you just get them on the night? Or?
Yeah, actually you can prepay or online, or you can just buy them on the night. So all good.
Yeah. Big night planned for this Friday night. If you're bored and sitting at home and you just want to go out and enjoy a really good night, get up there. Hey, it's a pretty big thing. So, boys, let's have a look at what's been caught by the people at home. It's time for Catch of the Week.
Catch of the Week, where you get to see yourself on TV.
And let's kick it off with a lovely snapper over in Western Port, off rill in fact. And David Sykes landed this cracker of 6 kilos. Seriously, there's probably 100 photos we're going to show of snapper this week, and just got to pick the first 4 that come in.
That's it.
And well done to David. That's a cracker of a fish.
Yeah, and hasn't rill been just an ongoing hotspot?
Yeah.
Which I'm sure we've probably featured over the last 5 or 6 weeks running, and I don't think it'll be
Absolutely.
going away anytime soon.
No, I mean, they're well spread. And Paul, you were saying you were down at the Tea Tree comp, and you said a lot of people fishing Western Port compared to Port Phillip in this year's competition.
Yeah, it seems to be that the quality of the fish is a bit better over there, and people are aiming for that big trophy fish. So Western Port was the dominant, the fish that dominated our samples were Western Port.
Yeah.
That 6 kilo fish is probably one of the ones from the 2001 spawning, which we'll talk about later.
There you go.
It's probably 15 years old or so.
Wow. There you go. Let's have a look at the next one. Peter Fogarty, he headed out off Chelsea and landed a very nice snapper. They're nice and fresh. Look at the blue in the fins, and just a fresh looking fish, isn't it?
Nice beard too.
Yeah, I was going to say good snapper, good snapper, good beard. That's just an all-round good photo.
I've seen that bloke around somewhere. I don't know whether it was on Australia's Most Wanted or something like that. But Pete, you just stay safe at home and lock the doors in case someone comes around, I can tell you. Well done, Pete. Jaylee Branch also got out off Mornington with her dad and a lovely 6.5 kilo. A bit of fatness there in the guts, a bit like you, Charlie. That one. Have a look at the gut on that.
Been a good paddock.
Hey? He's only a 2 kilo fish that's just eaten a steak.
Looking through my kitchen window, that one.
The camera adds 10 pounds, doesn't it?
25 in mine.
They're getting bigger. This one's over. Sorry?
That is unusual to see a belly like that on a snapper, isn't it?
It's an interesting, I've read some historical newspaper articles about snapper, 50, 60 years ago, and they used to talk about this fish called a dumpy snapper that was in Port Phillip Bay, which I assume dumpy means something like that. Short, stocky, fat, chunky snapper. So. Yeah. That was a dumpy snapper, the first one.
That's it.
They're getting bigger. Let's have a look at this one. This is Mark Stewart. He got a lovely, in fact, he got a couple up to 7.2 kilos over in Clifton Springs, Charlie, down in Geelong Way.
Yeah, they're nice fish, I know. No dumpies, but they're nice fish.
Yeah, definitely not dumpies. They're big fish.
Yeah. That Corio Bay area, like a lot of talk of snapper coming out of there.
Yeah.
Although, look, it's the same everywhere. Hot, cold.
Yeah,
it's good one day. We get to see all the good photos. But in all seriousness, it has been a little bit tough.
No one takes photos of nothing these days.
No, that's right.
That's no fun.
You never get to see the 50 boats that catch nothing. They don't take any photos.
That's right. If I don't take photos of nothing, I don't take any photos.
Something that hasn't stopped, boys, is barrel tuna.
This is insane.
It is.
I'm sick of saying it, but
have a look at this. 125 kilos out of Portland. Yeah,
that's incredible.
Thank you very much. And it's just, I mean, people are just focused on snapper now. You go out on the weekends, and there is literally thousands of boats in Port Phillip Bay. Now, many of those boats, if the barrels are on, they should be down Portland, but they've just gone, nah, it's time to move on. But the barrels are everywhere, and that's a classic example.
Yeah, and we've got, to show you how good it is, we've got local, like snapper charter boat fishermen who are putting off actually booking trips for snapper because they're still important catching big fish for themselves. They do the charter work the whole season, don't get much of a time to have a crack themselves. And I know Simon Rinaldi's one.
He's catching tuna last week.
He's staying up in Portland to get himself a tuna rather than come back and work. And for snapper, this is how good the fishing is there at the moment for these big barrel tuna. It's ridiculous.
The size of the fish.
Exactly right.
The next one will get people excited because it's the first one I've seen for the season anyway, but the first report of a yellowtail kingfish. The brand new Mornington Pier rebuilt, and you can see it in the background there, and young Chris was just throwing plastics at the salmon.
How good's that?
And look what popped up now. Reports I saw on Facebook saying last week it was a 60 centimetre. I mean, it got sent to us by Chris through the mobile hotline. He says it's 72 centimetres. It looks like a good fish, and thank you very much.
Yeah, it does look like a good fish. Caught land-based. Always great to see. The Mornington Pier is a bit of a renowned, I guess, land-based mark to get them, but it's great to see them turn up again because, through a big rebuild, which the Mornington Pier's been through, you're never quite sure what's going to come back and what's not. But I think it's safe to say the Kingies are going to be there for a bit.
And the best. I remember we had them raw in here.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, that was a one from the rip I got last year. Or back this year in April. So
definitely one of my favourites.
They are. They're just beautiful. Best sashimi you can get. Yeah. If you'd like to send in a pic of your catch of the week, this is what you have to do.
If you want to be like me and have your photo on TV, Email your fishing pick to info@ifish.com.au.
Coming up on Talking Fishing Product of the Week, and we show you just how Paul Hamer predicts future snapper seasons, straight after this on Talking Fishing.
Talking fishing.
Make mine a Mornington.
G'day, David Kramer here. I'm a massive fan of the Mazda BT50, having personally driven and owned one for more than 5 years now. And to tell you what, you can't beat it for an all-round great ute and a great tow vehicle. Get into Mornington Mazda before the end of the month and grab yourself a run-out bargain. Plus, with every BT50, you get all this $500 worth of fishing gear for free. I made mine a Mornington Mazda.
Make mine a Mornington Mazda.
Product of the Week. Brought to you by Tackle World. Now with 8 great locations around Victoria. Tackle World, where our advice is priceless. That's why it's for free.
See you down at Tackle World today.
Talking fishing, nothing but fishing. We're talking fishing.
And welcome back to Talking Fishing. Now, many people travel this vast country and enjoy some fishing while they're on their holidays. So many people have really good fishing gear these days, and they'd like to take their own fishing gear when they go away, perhaps up north into Queensland, or even if you're going over to Western Australia, dangle a line off a pier or whatever. And Adam, travel rods have come a long way. Show us some of the latest and greatest in travel rods.
Yeah, well, travel rods have come a long way, and I guess they're almost the in thing in rods at the moment, because there's so many uses for them, whether you're travelling interstate, overseas, even guys just putting in a...
How long have they come?
Yeah, there you go. Pretty
How
well.
long have they come, Adam?
About 12 foot, bit 12 foot there, Charlie. Or even just putting them in the car to go for a trout fish or whatever.
Yeah.
But we'll start with the odd telescopics, because you don't see too many of them on the market, and I know Charlie really wants to wave this around in front of the camera.
Want to whack that.
So this is a telescopic rod, 12 foot.
Yes, this is a telescopic surf rod. So fiberglass, folds away to pretty well nothing. You can fit it in any car compartment. You can put it into a luggage suitcase. You can basically do anything with it, but it does extend to 12 foot. So we find a lot of guys
You
with
look like
these.
you're enjoying that, Charlie.
A lot of guys travelling.
Take the chance often.
Travelling to South Australia, the south coast of New South Wales, obviously, but just a nice, handy, cheap way to go for a fish if you're travelling. So that's the 12 footer. This one here, Charlie, this is probably more like what you're more likely used to dealing with, Charlie. That's a smaller one.
Is that telescopic as well?
This is a telescopic rod. Now, this is probably one of the newer ones we've seen in recent times. So this has gone graphite, as a lot of fishing rods have, so to keep the weight down. A lot of your estuary, brim, freshwater trout, yellow belly type guys.
Is that a Shimano neck save?
It is a Shimano neck save.
Yeah.
Again, fold down to pretty well nothing. Again, some of these rods you can almost fit into the glove box of some of the big cars. So we find that these probably more popular amongst guys travelling inland. So that's a nice little freshwater one there that guys get amongst.
They're a really good quality rod too.
They are. So
really
we're still looking at 30-ton graphite, which we're used to with the neck save branding by Shimano. Great rod. Now we get into, I guess, the pull-apart rods, and these are the ones that I guess have been what have put travel rods on the map for the last few years.
Yep.
This one here is the first, or one of the first, travel nano rods. So this incorporates the nano resin technology, which we've spoken about previously on the show. Now this is a 9-foot slug chucker.
That is a 9-foot
Slug
4-piece
That's
that comes
right.
in the most beautiful case, hard case.
Exactly.
It fits in your suitcase, and I take this one wherever I go.
Well, this is one that was a bit of a surprise for us in Victoria. We didn't think this would be much of a popular rod, but it seems to be one of the most popular because take it anywhere in the country.
Yep. Or
Rock fishing, beach fishing, whatever you like. Throw a few
and I'll
lures.
be right, it's rated to 5 to 8 kilos or something like that, I think.
Yeah, it is. So generally speaking, those 9-footers range from that 5 to 8 to 5 to 10, depending on where you're
Great
traveling.
all-rounder, will handle anything.
Exactly, and I think that's why it's so popular, because it's a very, very universal rod. So that's the 4-piece 9-footer.
These are really good. Like if you go to, say, Cook Islands or Fiji, something like this, you can stand on the end of a pier.
Yep.
And you can cast those little slugs, like it's a slug tape.
For all your pelagics.
An absolute mile of these things, and they fit in your suitcase.
Exactly.
They're great.
Yep.
These ones have been popular for a long time. These are your 3-piece bait caster. the guys travelling up north. A lot of guys doing road trips up north these days. You know, they do the tour of the coast.
Nice little raider.
Nice little raider. Again, fits in anything, whether it's a suitcase or the car. It comes in a nice little hard case, much similar to the Nano we were looking at.
Yep.
That's a pearler and been around for a long time. Trell, you'd probably go through a few of them
Yeah,
up
we
in
do
Shep
actually.
too.
Absolutely.
Now this one is pretty exciting because this is the first time I've seen a high quality graphite 15 to 24 kilo spin travel rod. Again, breaks down into small pieces. You can fit that into any large suitcase.
Yeah.
And I have travelled with this before, so it does fit into a suitcase. These have been tested on some of the most brutal fish in the country. Paul Worsling has taken this on many filming trip for iFishing, being stuck into GTs, Spanish mackerel, dogtooth tuna.
Those big poppers.
Exactly,
Huge poppers.
exactly.
Yeah.
If you're travelling, and we sell a lot of these to guys that do the surfing trips. They travel, you know, they do the surf trips. They're access to these big rock ledges with big GTs. These are an absolute cracker. Built for a spin rod, so your big Stellas and Saragosas, bits and pieces. But that's a genuine three-piece, 15 to 24 kilo spin rod.
Nice.
Capable of handling anything.
Yeah.
So
Well
it's
done.
travel rods.
Travel rods have changed over the years. It's just absolutely fantastic. Check them out in your local tackle shop. Now, we're going to have a look at some of Paul Hamer's work on snapper research. Got a little video just to introduce what Paul does.
Victoria has some of the best fishing in Australia. To maintain and develop this rich natural resource, Fisheries Victoria draws on the advice of its scientists and the broader community. A big highlight of the year for thousands of Victorian anglers is the snapper season.
Fantastic. Have a look at that. That's beautiful.
To ensure snapper season continues to remain sustainable, fisheries scientists monitor the number of baby snapper coming into Port Phillip Bay after each spawning season.
We've headed out tonight as part of our surveys of a range of sites in Port Phillip Bay. These sites cover the main nursery areas for snapper in central and western Victoria. What we find from these surveys tell us about replenishment of snapper populations all the way from Portland to Wilson's Promontory, including Port Phillip Bay and Western Port Bay. We come out at night to survey, as this is when the juvenile snapper are more effectively caught by our small trawl net. Over the last 23 years, fisheries scientists have built up an invaluable database that's allowed us to track long-term variation in the abundance of baby snapper, and has also shown us how variable the numbers are from year to year. Linking this data with other information gives us an understanding of what natural factors might be influencing these large fluctuations. One important factor we've learned about is the influence of the Yarra River flow, particularly during spring. This flow delivers critical nutrients that feed the food chain that supports the baby snapper larvae as they grow. Another critical factor is the seasonal water temperature dynamics. The eggs and larvae of snapper have strict temperature tolerances and do best between 18 and 22 degrees Celsius. So really it's an interaction between these two climate factors which is critical in determining how many baby snapper will survive. So this little fella here is 26 centimetres length, and actually that means he's probably around about between 2 and 3 years of age. The snapper take about 3 to 4 years to reach the legal minimum size of 28 centimetres and approximately 6 years to reach 40 plus centimetres and enter the adult fishery. Survey results over the last decade suggest that the recent high catches should start to moderate. However, the good news is the last few years of surveys have shown high numbers of baby snapper, which means that the long-term forecast for the fishery is highly encouraging.
These ongoing assessments by fisheries scientists ensure that environmentally driven fluctuations in baby snapper numbers are clearly understood. These results are then factored into the long-term sustainable management of Victoria's snapper fishery that is so important to so many Victorians.
Now, I've always said to you, Paul, your work is damn important. And while things are going really, really well, People may not want to know too much about it. When things go bad, they need your info to make management decisions. And, going back a few years when, in fact, probably going back 15 years, no, it mightn't have been that long, 10. We're having a cracker few years, and people virtually said they're taking too many snapper. Let's change the rules around the bags and size limits and all that. And it was changed. It was some of your work that said, well, this is why we're in really good conditions and you're going to keep catching these fish and all that. So important. And I know there's been times where there's been budget cuts with different governments and all that, but I tell you what, the day that they stop your work is the day that a government's in trouble. And I really mean that. So it's such important work. We've got the net here. I don't know if we can pick that up on camera, but that's the net that you were trolling in that that video there.
Yeah, Dave. The great thing about the program we've developed is that it's very cheap.
Yeah.
We use a really small net. I mean, you don't need a big fishing rod and big hook to catch little fish.
Yeah.
You need a small net. Same thing. So it's a small net. It's got about 8mm mesh on it.
Yep.
So we're not targeting big snapper. We're targeting little fellas around about this size.
There you go.
So
that's actually Trelly's PB. Very similar to Trelly's PB.
Looks like a key ring.
So,
What does it taste like?
yeah.
That'd be all right.
You want to try it?
He will.
10 of them on a skewer trolley would be pretty good. So Paul, you're virtually going along. You're trolling up these small fish, and you count how many small fish there are.
Yeah, that's right. We use the term recruitment, which is basically the introduction of a new fish into a population. So I often call these guys baby snapper.
Yeah.
But when we say the word recruitment, that's what we mean. It's new fish coming in or young of the year.
Yeah.
And with snapper and most of our estuarine fish species, the survival of the young is highly variable from year to year, and it has a huge impact on what we see in the fishery down the track.
Yep.
So these surveys, and the one for snapper in particular, tells us what to expect in the snapper fishery in about 7 years' time.
Wow.
Because it takes these little fellas 7 years to get to that 40 centimetre limit for the adult population. We can forecast ahead of time based on these surveys.
Would I be right in saying that every year, all those snapper that come into the bay, and there are some resident fish, but a lot of them come into the bay to spawn, and they probably go into Western Port as well. Would I be right in saying that every year, they lay millions and millions, if not billions of eggs, but the deciding factor is whether they survive?
Yeah, exactly right, David. Snapper, like a lot of species, have this strategy of just pumping out as many eggs as they can, full well knowing that 99% of them might die every year.
Yeah.
But when you're pumping out millions of eggs, you only need a small survival rate to translate into a lot of small fish. And it's very subtle. The variation in survival can be very small, but can lead to huge numbers of small baby fish.
Just put a couple of graphs up here. So the carom bite and the yarra plume is so important for the survival of the fish.
That's right. So snapper, what we see is there's migrations coming into the bay during the spring, late spring into summer. And these fish aggregate in the north and northeast of the bay in particular, and they're there because that's an area of the bay that's highly productive due to the influence of the yarra in particular, which is one of the prime nutrient sources into the bay. So it's like pumping fertiliser in, which feeds the plankton communities. So there's tiny little microscopic algae that grow up, and then the tiny little microscopic crustaceans.
I think we've got a few slides here, so we'll keep showing the slides. So
that's it. These are these guys here.
So that's what the baby snapper are eating.
That's what these little baby snapper eat when they're up in the water column. So after the eggs hatch, after about a day or so floating on the surface,
and they turn into little baby snapper.
They turn into little larvae, and after
we've got
about
a
3
slide
or 4
of, I think.
days, these guys have to start eating after about 4 days. They've got a yolk that they resorb, and that gives them a bit of a start. But once they've resorbed that yolk sac, they've got to feed.
Yeah.
And they've only got a really tiny tummy, and they can only fit a couple of prey items in. They've got no body reserves, so they're highly vulnerable to starvation.
Yeah.
So the amount of food in the water column when these guys hatch out of their eggs is really critical to driving their survival.
Wow.
And it all comes back to
so whether one survives or 5 million survive can affect what the snapper season is in years and years to come.
So that can be really influenced by what you can actually probably feed upstream in the yarra to actually come down and... You ever tried feeding them?
We're playing around with that idea at the moment because we know that in the long term with climate change we're going to have reduced flow into the bay and different flow dynamics, and that could have a big impact on not only snapper but flathead and a whole range of species. What
do you think, Charlie? How are you going to feed them? A bit of fertiliser?
Well, obviously they're eating what they're eating. I mean, you can mimic that or grow that as an algae or something like that that flows in there, just like burling.
Probably on that scale that'd be difficult, but We do have a big sewage treatment facility on the western side of the shoreline, which is pumping a lot of nitrogen out. Right, nitrogen's the key chemical that we require.
Yeah.
And it's possible that in time we might start playing around with how we manage that outflow.
Interesting.
To help benefit plankton communities to drive fisheries.
Than a Werribee duck.
Paul,
That's
come
going
back to
well.
this conversation, but coming up on Talking Fishing, a little bit of fisheries news, and then back to Paul Hamer's research on snapper right after this.
Talking fishing.
Good morning, spotters. Stephanie speaking.
Talking fishing, nothing but fishing, we're talking fishing.
And now it's time for the news. The fisheries news. Sounds a bit fishy to me.
Bit of serious news happening around at fisheries at the moment, and it's all coming to a head, I guess, because the legislation that's required to get the commercial netting brought back and out of Port Phillip Bay heads into Parliament this Thursday for debate, and there's obviously been a lot of talk, and the commercial industry, and I guess that's what they should be doing, is trying to defend their case, and they're entitled to, but the fact is that it's going to happen, and we've seen some, I guess, a lot of misinformation, boys. Firstly, kicked off with a story in the Herald Sun with Neil Perry, and he virtually said that it's all over for the restaurants. No more Port Phillip Bay, fish are going to be in his restaurant. And, it was just a one-sided, ill-informed article in the Herald Sun. It went Australia-wide. But it virtually said, Neil Perry of the Rockpool Group said that between 70 to 90% of the seafood served in his Melbourne-based restaurants comes from Port Phillip Bay. Beautiful, fresh, sustainable fish that is fundamentally a part of the culture of Melbourne is going to disappear, Neil Perry of Rockpool told the Herald Sun. Fish is about a fresh product. The further anything travels in the seafood world, the less fine it is. Now,
Where did they get the information?
well, I don't know, but I got his menu here. So, Trelly, I'm going to test you, right? You're eating a Rockpool. Well, firstly, have you guys... I won't ask you, Paul. You stay out of this because you'll get in trouble off your boss. How many times have you eaten in Rockpool in the last 6 months?
Never, and then I thought Neil Perry was a brand of underwear.
All right. Adam, how many times have you eaten Rockpool lately?
Never.
No. What I'm saying is the average fisherman doesn't eat at Rockpool because it's a very high level in-crowd casino. So I'm going to go through his menu. I printed this off his webpage, rockpool.com.au. I wish you, Trelly, before tonight thought that was a back beach at Sereno. It's actually a restaurant. You can get crudo of Hiramasha kingfish. Is that from Port Phillip Bay?
No idea.
No. Sashimi of yellowfin tuna from Port Phillip Bay.
Oh, no, I don't.
Alaskan king crab.
Definitely not.
Only in the winter, that one.
Cured ocean trout. Ads? Got any of those in Port Phillip Bay? No. Okay. King prawns? No. Spanner crab out of Port Phillip Bay? No. Okay. I'll keep going. That's the cold bar. The hot starters. Grilled king prawns? No.
Okay, yeah, no.
Grilled Coorong yellow eye mullet?
Coorong, but nah.
No. Mussels? Potentially.
Possibly, yeah, possibly.
They'll still be around when Port Lincoln clams?
Nah.
Grilled rock flathead fillets.
Oh, yeah,
there's a disclaimer that says that they come from Corner Inlet, though. Grilled swordfish. Can't remember them. Crispy King George whiting fillets.
Possibly.
Maybe, but there's a disclaimer down there that says they come from Corner Inlet. Grilled Mount Cook alpine salmon.
Yeah, no, that's definitely not there.
Spicy mussel.
Oh, yeah, possibly.
I'm pretty sure, going back to this well-informed Herald Sun article, that it said 70 to 90% of his fish come from what? Nah. What a load of rubbish. Seriously.
Stick to making underwear.
Backed up by one of the worst research stories that I've ever heard on radio. Neil Mitchell with the Lord Mayor Robert Doyle. Robert Doyle saying the restaurants are all finished in Melbourne. No more seafood from Port Phillip Bay. 70 to 90%. They're all gone. What absolute rubbish. I tell you what, bit over some of the stuff that appears in our media.
And I bet it could buy a really good rod and reel for what he charges for an entree down there too.
Probably could.
Go fishing all year.
Go get your annual one.
exactly. In fact, you could run a whole kids' day, couldn't you, with 500 kids for the price of an entree and a main
Wouldn't
meal.
mind going and catch me out and swordfish from Port Phillip Bay, though.
I tell you what,
That's good.
it's no good what's being reported in the media.
Sensationalised, of course. So but that's what happens.
Anyway, crunch time Thursday gets debated in Parliament, and it's just going to happen. And we think that the compensation is fair, it's compassionate. People are going to get good payouts, and it's just unfortunately it's the time for it to go. So let's get back onto Paul's work. Boys, there's a nice little graph of what's coming up in future years, and
this is interesting.
Yeah,
this is real interesting.
It is.
So,
Paul, how do you interpret this?
So, I look at this and think of a lot of blood, sweat and tears and a lot of sweating.
A bit of night shift. A bit of night shift.
How good is this? I mean, we all thought the world was flat until the scientists come along.
That's right.
So that's a graph.
Bumpy world.
That's a graph of how many little fish you catch in your net when you go out at night, and then you go, okay, well in that 1 year, whatever it was, 2003-4, I think it is, really high peak. And I know it looks like it's all downhill from there, but if you look at 3 years ago, that's actually equal third in 20 odd years or whatever.
Yeah, so this is the annual time series of the recruitment index, which is the number of babies, as you said, we sample in the bay. So think about this as the pattern of replenishment of the snapper fishery. And the snapper fishery we're talking about is the western stock, which runs from Wilson's Promontory all the way into South Australia, just over the border. Port Phillip Bay is the key spawning ground and nursery area for snapper for that whole stock. So this tells us a lot. We know we can interpret what's going to happen with the whole stock based on this graph.
Wow.
And those two big peaks, the two highest ones, are largely responsible for what drove the really great fishing we've seen over the last decade.
Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier about why we had to look at those size limits again, because we knew we had one big year class coming into that spawning age and we wanted to protect it. That's why we went from 50 down to 40, 3 over. So it's a really, really useful piece. Not many fisheries have that kind of information on the number of babies. It's the actual replenishment. We know what's coming. 7 years' time, those other bits of peaks on the end will come into the fishery. So that's why we're saying it's going to go down a little bit, but stabilise and then probably come up again.
So
and would I be right?
graph,
When I was saying about all the eggs and then only so many survive, but they pretty much don't survive in Western Port, do they? They only survive in Port Phillip because of the conditions.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time in there in the early years looking for them. We do find them in there. There is baby snapper in there is snapper larvae in there, but the numbers compared to Port Phillip are way lower. So it's a little bit of recruitment, but the scale of Port Phillip is much greater. Yep.
Paul, we're working on a 2-hour show. You can be the guest on the next one. But up next, Kramer's Mailbag, and we talk King George Whiting with Paul Hamer. Up next on Talking Fishing.
Talking fishing.
We know what you'd rather be doing. We know what you've really got in mind. We know you'd rather be out fishing. And today's the day you're gonna wet a line. 'Cause every day's a good day. Stop wishing. Every day's a chance to drift away. Drift away. Every day's a good day for fishing. See you down at Tackle World today.
Talking fishing, nothing but fishing. We're talking fishing.
Plenty of mailbag this week, I tell you what, and boys will try and get through it. A few funny ones. I love to get through some of these. Let's kick it off. Dave the Dolphin. On behalf of the Port Phillip Bay Dolphin Social Club, I am writing to let you know a little bit about us. Our club boasts a seafood buffet, billiard room, tennis court, shooting range and 9-hole golf course. Please refrain from boating at speed in our zone as the prop wash upsets our card games. This is serious. We watch the show every week on our big screen TV, although on the last Tuesday of the month it clashes with our trivia night. We're glad to see netting ban in Port Phillip Bay, but it would be nice if you could if one could be left behind for us to hit our tennis balls over. Dave O, the Dolphin, is the club president of the Port Phillip Bay Dolphin. I think someone's taken the...
No.
Good to hear it from a dolphin's mouth, isn't it?
I think they're mucking us around, unless he's a cousin of Richie Minnows or something. But anyway, this one today, Michael Esposto wrote to us. He said, in Mordialloc boat ramp by the bridge is $20 to launch. What a joke. Now, costs for snapper season, you're better off going to the Vic Market and buying a box of crays. That is $20 to launch. Going to keep flying through these. Hi Kramer, can you clear up an ongoing misunderstanding amongst fishermen and women in regards to possession limits? If someone goes on a holiday for a week and goes fishing every day, can they catch their bag limit of one species a couple of times and then legally transport them home without being over the possession limits? May need fisheries to clarify and specify how many days catch needs to be labelled so people don't receive fines for being over the legal limits. From Leah. Charlie, what do you reckon about that?
If you can see it on the screen there, quick.
Go on to the guide.
That's the guide, the 2015 guide. Now, a lot of times it actually says that the catch limit is the bag limit, but I suggest you get that because it varies on different species. So, so get the guide. You can't go wrong then, and you won't get yourself into trouble.
The other thing is, we've got Rod Barber, Senior Fisheries Officer, in here on about the 15th of December, live on the show. So that's a question for him. We'll talk about that. Let me keep flying through this. Hi guys, just wondering if you would be able to clear up where the boundary for the proposed netting ban in Corio Bay will actually be. Everyone you talk to has a different idea where it will extend to. Even my mate Actor, who knows everything, doesn't know where the boundary will be. So, well, he doesn't know anything, does he, Actor? So I can tell you the exact answer because the answer is contained in the Fisheries Amendment Bill, which goes into Parliament this Thursday, and it says Corio Bay means any of the waters of Port Phillip Bay west of longitude 144.30. There you go. So you can actually draw a line on there on the map, and that's when it is. So, boys, a couple of long ones. I won't go into these because we're going to run out of time. Yeah, we'll save all those to next week if that's all right, boys, because we do want to talk to Paul. But if you'd like to write to me, all these blokes, this is what you do.
Send your mail to Kramer's Mailbag, PO Box 734, Patterson Lakes, Victoria 3197, or email kramer@ifish.com.au.
Now, Paul, not only do you know a lot about snapper, you know a bit about flathead, but also King George whiting, and I guess King George whiting are one of the favourite species that recreational anglers like to target. I think we've got a couple of graphs up on the King George whiting as well, but it's been a tough couple of years on the whiting, hasn't it?
Yeah, by all accounts it has been, and we predicted it a few years ago. Just like with snapper, we do the same surveys with whiting.
Hopefully we'll get some slides up while you're talking.
There we go. So King George whiting are very different to a lot of the species that we're used to in the bay. They don't actually spawn in the bay. They spawn somewhere down the west coast. We're still trying to find where they spawn.
Really?
We know it's a long way to the west. So these little whiting come into the seagrass beds in the spring, and they're turning up now. They're coming in on the currents.
So they're born out in the ocean and then come into the bay as little juveniles. Is that right?
Exactly. They come into the bay as these.
Have a look at that. That's actually a King George whiting. Now, that's actually Trelly's PB.
I just get a slightly bigger one. Here we go. This one here.
Oh, hang on, that's a big one, Charlie. That is your real PB.
He's nearly a keeper, isn't he?
So this little fella here,
Chips.
That snapper I showed you earlier is the same age as this fish.
So which is how old?
This is about 3 to 4 months.
There you go.
So these little guys are drifting in Bass Strait and the West Coast ocean waters for that length of time.
What? How do they not get eaten?
Yeah, I was going to say, how do they survive?
Look, it's a marvel how they get into the bay. You know, think about what these little guys have been through, and they're drifting through the winter.
There must be millions of them.
There must be, because the mortality must be huge. And that chance that they can get into the Port Phillip Bay region and transport in with the currents and actually retain in the bay, I still don't know how they do that.
What happens if the current's going the other way?
I think for a period of time they're flushing in and out.
They're buggered.
And what they are,
they swim hard.
They end up in Perth.
They can't swim. They're really poor swimmers. We've actually put them in flume tanks to see how fast they can swim.
A bit like me.
They're pretty much Eddie the Eel of the fishing world, really.
Is that right?
They're hopeless swimmers, so they rely on the climate to help them. So when we get those big westerlies in late winter, spring that push a lot of water up into the bay, when the ramps are really high up, those are the conditions that can push those larvae up into the bay and get them into the seagrass beds.
Wow.
So we find that when we get lots of westerly winds during late winter, early spring, we get lots of these babies coming into the bay. So they're again strongly influenced by climate.
So again, you have another net, which we've actually got in the studio, but a bit hard to get them all out, but it's a finer mesh net, and you, again, count the juvenile whiting?
Yeah, it's very simple. It's
I think we've got a graph of that as well.
It's you can see the mesh size there. So these are little what we call post-larval King George whiting sampled
3
out
of Trelly's
seagrass beds.
PBs there.
That's right.
So that's what they look like when they're alive. They're very well camouflaged in seagrass beds. They're amazing. They've got these little black marks on their backs that look like seagrass blades when you look at them from above. So they're very well adapted to seagrass, which is their prime habitat. That graph there shows you the results of the surveys since 1998. So every point on that's a year of our surveys, and it shows you how variable the numbers of these little fellas getting into Port Phillip Bay is.
Yep.
They take about 2-3 years to grow up to the size where they're available to catch, hit that 27
So you have to
centimetre
say
limit.
2013 was a fair year?
It was. So we're looking forward to this summer and the next year or so of some pretty good whiting fishing.
Yeah, okay.
They only stay in the bay for a couple of years.
Yep.
They leave and they go out to the ocean and they complete the rest of their life out there. We never see them again.
So all the big ones?
Yeah, so that's why your big fish are all off the coast. And that's another reason why the whiting fishery really bounces around, because each one of those groups of little larvae come in, 2 or 3 years later you catch them, another year or so they're gone and they don't come back. So it's a very cyclic fishery. So you can see that graph had a very low year in 2010. We're sort of past that low period the last year or so, but that's why the catch has been so poor. We just had a year where we had very low numbers of these guys
so
getting
those
in.
fish that have, you do hear the odd 48, 50, 51, 52, they're rare, aren't they? And they're fish that just haven't travelled out that probably should have.
Well, and there's also a lot of variation in the growth.
Yeah, okay.
Though they're still probably only 4 years old. So we've aged fish all the way down to Portland up to that size, and we've very rarely get a fish older than 7. And we know whiting can live to 20 years. We get them to that age on the spawning grounds in South Australia.
Yeah, wow.
So we only have pretty young fish in our
There you
bays.
go.
It's a fishery based on juveniles.
Yeah. Coming up on Talking Fishing, all the hot spots and plenty more with Paul Hamer. We're going to talk about Flathead next, straight after this.
Talking fishing.
G'day, Callan here from Paul Worsling's Tackle World Cranbourne.
Supercharged batteries have been supplying maintenance-free marine batteries since 2001. The Seamaster Gold range is second to none, delivering superior starting power and reserve capacity. No need to top up with water, truly a fit and forget battery. With up to 2 years replacement warranty, you know you have quality. Your battery is your lifeline. Without it, you're dead in the water because it's bloody hard to push start.
I've got a Seamaster battery in my boat.
Make yours a Seamaster Gold today.
Talking fishing, nothing but fishing, we're talking fishing.
Hello, Richie Minnow here. It's now time for this week's fishing hotspots on Talking Fishing. Marvellous.
Now, just before, it's hard to keep a straight face. Just before we get onto the hot spots, I've got a serious question for you, Paul. Have you ever found Richie Minnow in your nets? You ever found a Richie Minnow?
Yeah, something that looks a bit like him, actually.
Because the thing I'd like to know, the statistics about Richie is like he always acts like a juvenile.
Yeah.
So he's been like a juvenile for years.
Always trying to spawn.
Anyway, we better get on with hot spots. It's going to go downhill from here. All right, let's kick it off. Many people are coming out of Carrum and turning right these days because a lot of fish seem to be holding up around that Beaumaris, Edithvale, Chelsea area. I would say Edithvale, 14 metres of water is the place to go this weekend.
Write that down. You haven't been wrong so far this season.
No, that's right. Yeah, it's
That's
been pretty good. Edithvale, 14 metres. Let's keep going. Heading up further north. A lot of people are going up north right into Altona.
Yep.
The bay proper, most of it's around the 18-degree mark now, although I was down at Mud Island on Sunday, and at the end of the run-in tide there was a bit of ocean current coming in, obviously, and it was about 16.5, but certainly up that top end it's a very consistent 18, even getting to 19 in parts. So Altona's good. Over in Western Port, don't forget about the King George whiting. It is time to get your whiting gear out and start looking, because the waters are warm, the fish are in, and I'm telling you, it's not all about the snapper anymore. Get out there and enjoy some lovely King George whiting on the Middle Spit, the capital of King George whiting. But if you want a snapper in Western Port, go to Rill.
Well, you saw it in Catch of the Week.
That's it.
Proven.
Yeah,
6
absolutely. People are saying the queues at Coronella are just ridiculous.
Yeah,
Go onto Phillip Island, launch there, go to Real, go and catch yourself some big snapper because there's plenty of good ones there. And a couple more hotspots around the state. Head down to Portland. If you're bored with snapper, whiting, all that other stuff, get down to Portland. That one that we had on in Catch of the Week was actually caught 15 minutes after starting to troll.
Yeah, well,
it's not hard. You don't need to go out far.
They're in close too. You're not driving out to the motoring out to the shelf or whatever. They're still in pretty close. Just
when you get down to Portland this time of year, you don't have to rug up in 8 different layers and 4 beanies and all that. It's pleasant fishing. Go for a swim. And on the other end of the state, Lake Tyres, I'm told, is absolutely on fire.
Yeah, some nice brim starting to show up at Tyres too.
I've got to
big
say
flatties are there, but
if Jared Day can catch a brim there, anyone can.
that's
so
right,
the brim are
pretty
obviously
thick.
on. But,
they're pretty thick.
but the flatties too, some big reports of the odd 1 metre
that's right.
coming out of there.
I'd be interested to hear about the artificial reefs we put in there a year or two back, if anyone's fished them.
Have you put some reefs in there?
Yeah, we put
you
a couple in a few years ago. So
how would people know where that is, Paul?
They go to the fisheries website. Yeah, there's maps there showing the coordinates of these reefs.
Yeah.
We put 3 reefs in Lake Tyres.
Yeah.
We put a couple in Malakuta and another couple in Gippsland Lakes.
Yeah, there you go.
What sort of depth in Lake Tyres?
They'd be fishing.
They're in about sort of 4 metres.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
pretty easily to access.
There's been mulloway let go in Lake Tyres recently too. I know where I might go fishing about a year's time. Artificial reefs in Lake Tyres. Boy, that could really be on fire. All right, that's it for Hotspots. Let's have a look at what's coming up on C31 very quickly tonight. Straight after us, the boys on Catch and Cook, and Gina, of course, will cook up a storm. Tomorrow morning on the fly. Thursday morning, if you want to watch this show again, if you want to hear all the stuff that Paul talked about, watch the replay, 7 o'clock on Thursday morning. Catch and Cook on the fly as well. Friday, there's a couple of shows in the morning. Saturday, there's lots. And Saturday night, there's lots more. So there you go. Paul, Flathead. Let's talk about the flathead stocks that are in Port Phillip Bay.
Yeah, because this is one where all the wreck guys are scratching their heads going, what's going on? I used to be able to catch a truckload.
They used to be everywhere. That graph looks like a very terrible picture.
It does.
What's the game?
Well, first of all, we sampled the flathead the same way, in the same survey as we do the snapper. Flathead spawn at roughly the same time. Sort of spring through summer, so we can get those little babies along with the snapper, so we can kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
Or 2 fish.
2 fish,
with 1 net.
Let's keep on the right taxa. With 1. These little guys here are what we're after. And here's a few here.
We're going to actually show them.
Yeah, we've got some little ones here again.
Just watch out. If we switch out for the spikes.
So these are the same age roughly as those little snapper that we showed before.
The people at home, that one on the left of screen, that was actually Trelly's PB.
So he's done it on flathead as well.
He's not different.
Trelly's collection of fish.
So these little guys up to about 15 centimetres.
And how old are they?
They're less than 1.
Oh yeah,
less than 1 years old. Yeah. That graph that we had before, if we can bring it back.
Let me bring it back up.
Shows you some really big spikes in the late 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
And that was when the fishery was going really well. Those fish only lived for about 20 years. So if you look at the first peak, 1988, that's already gone. They're no longer alive. They're no longer in the system. Likewise with the second peak. So
they just die naturally.
Yeah, that's their longevity is about 20 years. Flathead lived 20, 23 years or so. So that's it, they're gone. We're now relying on all these low years. So these are the numbers of babies we sample each year. It's the index of the abundance. So you can see how it's dropped right away. So this prolonged period of low spawning success or low recruitment is what's driving the low fishery at the moment. We just haven't had the replenishment that we had historically, and it's a really big drop.
And they spawn in the bay?
They spawn in the bay, and it's pretty much a closed population in the bay.
To stay residents?
Yeah, largely resident. Most of the tagging work and that we've done over the years supports that. So we're in a bit of an interesting situation with that species where it's at historical low levels. Do you understand what that big decline was caused by?
The most plausible explanation from the work we did, and this was an RFL-funded project done by Alistair Hurst and a few of our colleagues to try and work out what's going on with flathead, really pointed towards the drought as being a severe impact on the spawning success of these guys. So while it didn't have the same effect on snapper, the slight differences in the timing of spawning, etc., seems to have resulted in that, during the drought period we had just really poor recruitment, and as a result the fishery just hasn't been replenished.
Interesting.
So it's a bit of a, wait and hope for
things to improve.
Paul,
or
many
step in and
people
do
would say
something.
that back in those days when flathead were everywhere, there wasn't nearly as many snapper in the system.
True, yeah.
Some people theorise that it's a competition for food, and there's a lot more snapper in the system now that are just eating. They need to eat so much, and the flathead can't compete.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I also think along those lines too that there's, while the river flow looks important, there is other processes that happen at the same time, and it's sometimes hard to pick which one's the actual real important one. And you're right, snapper have increased as flathead have gone down, and there may be increased competition. They may be preying on, predating on the flathead, and that's part of the reason why little ones aren't surviving. So, the whole thing, maybe we need to look at improving the habitats in the bay so we can increase the carrying capacity of the bay for flathead and snapper by providing other food sources. So putting in new reef habitat, oysters and shellfish, etc.
So I guess with an extended period of poor recruitment on the flatties, at what point would you guys look at it and go, okay, this is going on a bit long? Is there a possibility that just might not be flathead in the bay? Is it looking at, like, there was a little spike towards the end of that graph, but it wasn't huge. At what point would you guys look at it and say, okay, this is dragging on a little bit longer than what we'd like? Is there anything we can do to help to get in and, I guess, improve drought we can't do anything about.
No. Well, first of all, they're not going to go extinct.
Yeah.
There's always going to be good numbers of flathead in the bay. I mean, you can still get a feed of flathead, no worries. It's about trying to encourage that fishery to get back to where it was. And while, there is a large climate effect or other processes going on that we can't necessarily control, we can start thinking about how we might want to pull back on the mortality of the adults, so that we can keep enough in the bank, so when the environment does become right for the spawning, we get the biggest bang for buck from that spawning. So we're looking into it now and trying to look at what the options are. It seems like bag limits are probably the only option that we've got due to the nature of the growth of these guys. The females are bigger than the males. If we increase the size limit, we're just going to encourage more catching of females, which is not a good thing either. So we're looking at bag limit options at the moment.
Paul, you got to come back.
We
could sit here and talk to you for hours.
We did a talking fishing special.
We've tried to cram a lot of information in, but on behalf of all the people watching, because there's a lot of people watching and saying, wow, this is really good info, thank you for coming in. It's excellent work, and I think without your work, you can't manage a fishery properly, and it's people like yourself and Corey Green, those sort of guys, Greg Jenkins, I know has been great, and it's really good work. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for your work.
Yeah, no worries. And thanks to all the people at the Tea Tree that helped out with Odoliths.
There you go.
It was really great.
That's it for Talking Fishing. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you want to rewatch all the info with Paul Hamer tonight, this episode will be posted on our YouTube channel this Thursday, where you can watch it as many times as you like. Until next Tuesday evening on Talking Fishing, stay safe on the water and enjoy your fishing.
Talking fishing, nothing but fishing, we're talking fishing. We got all you need, just take a look. Watch those fish jump on your hook. So just relax and take your time. Enjoy the show, then drop us a line. Talking fishing, nothing but fishing, we're talking fishing. Talking fishing, nothing but fishing, we're talking fishing. Talking fishing.
Have a good weekend, Mr. Walker.
You too, son.
Talking fishing, nothing but fishing, talking fishing. If it's facts about fishing that you want to know, then tune in, folks, cause this is the show. We'll show you all the right bait to use, so sit right back, you got nothing to lose. Doesn't really matter if it's trout or carp, flathead, marlin or a gummy shark. Listen to the guys and you can't go wrong. They'll be talking about fishing till the cows come home. Talking fishing, nothing but fishing, we're talking fishing.
Welcome everyone to Talking Fishing, a massive show coming up as always, and what another great week in fishing it has been. The word on everyone's lips at the moment is snapper, and tonight you're going to learn a thing or two about snapper with Paul Hamer, one of the world's leading experts on snapper. He works for Fisheries Victoria and he joins us on the couch very, very shortly. Also tonight, our first kingfish report for the season. That'll get people excited, and we have a look at the modern day travel rods. But before all that, a big welcome to Adam Ring. As always, welcome, Ads.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. And coming off another huge weekend, the weather turned it on for Sunday, and I went for a trip with my old man down on the peninsula, and I reckon there would have been more Victorians out on the water just on Sunday than there was on dry land. There was boats and people everywhere.
It's good. It's a great time of year, isn't it? And I think we've been pretty lucky with the weekend weather too. Lots of weekends with at least one day that's fishable. So
yeah, that's right.
Pretty good little pattern we're on at the moment. A big welcome to Trelly as well. Just 3 more sleeps until Trelly's Tackle Spectacular in Shepparton this Friday night, Trelly.
That's right, yeah.
This Friday night, have I got it right?
You're right, yep. This Friday night in Shepparton, the Tackle Spectacular, and gonna have a little bit of fun there. Guys come along. We run the whole event to clockwork as you expect from me.
Bit of liquid entertainment and a bit of man hugging going on and all that sort of stuff. So it should be pretty good. And a very big welcome to a man regarded as one of the best fisheries scientists in the world. I hope he doesn't mind me saying that. What Paul Hamer doesn't know about snapper isn't worth knowing. Welcome to Talking Fishing, Paul.
Thanks, David. I'm glad the rest of the world isn't watching this show.
Well, the rest of the world's scientists anyway.
Great to be here, and great to meet you two. And looking forward to the show. Yeah,
we do rate you pretty big, and Paul, for people that have been following us in the media, we've done plenty of interviews. Like back on the old 3SER days and 3AW, we've done a bit. You've certainly come along to some of the talk nights we've had down at Mornington Mazda. 200-300 people in the room, and never before, though, have you been able to show some of the stuff you're going to show tonight, which is just fantastic, because we've actually got some snapper that are how old?
Oh, about 3 to 5 months.
3 to 5 months. Some whiting that are how old?
About 3 months.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I haven't got the jar here, but there's a dozen of them in a little jar like that. So we're going to show you some very small fish, because what Paul does, he actually goes out and nets juvenile fish, and we're going to see a little bit of that through the show, a bit of footage on that, and then virtually predicts what the seasons are in coming years. So pretty good stuff. How long have you worked for Fisheries Victoria?
Gee, it's probably 18 years now.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
Time flies. I remember the first time I met you, and we were talking about how important it is to communicate the science to the public and to the fishers.
Yep.
And the idea of getting out and doing more and finding forums to do it. And, here we are 15 years later.
Live TV. It's 15 years to get
turns, hey.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Just before we get on to a bit more, Trelly's Tackle Spectacular. Have I got that right, Trelly?
Correct.
This Friday night, I think we've got a bit of a slide coming up, but starts at 6:30?
Starts at 6:30 on Friday night at the showgrounds. And if you do come along, it is a really good night. We've got a lot of information, industry information. We've got the forum, Victorian Fisheries Forum, on what you'd like to say to government about access to water or boat ramps, things like that. And $5,000 worth of giveaway prizes, and it's just a really good fun night. And a few bargains there too.
And what do you do about tickets, Trelly? Do you prepay, or can you just get them on the night? Or?
Yeah, actually you can prepay or online, or you can just buy them on the night. So all good.
Yeah. Big night planned for this Friday night. If you're bored and sitting at home and you just want to go out and enjoy a really good night, get up there. Hey, it's a pretty big thing. So, boys, let's have a look at what's been caught by the people at home. It's time for Catch of the Week.
Catch of the Week, when you get to see yourself on TV.
And let's kick it off with a lovely snapper over in Western Port, off reel in fact, and David Sykes landed this cracker of 6 kilos. Seriously, there's probably 100 photos we're going to show of snapper this week, and just got to pick the first 4 that come in. And well done to David. That's a cracker of a fish.
Yeah, and hasn't reel been just an ongoing hotspot?
Yeah.
Which I'm sure we've probably featured over the last 5 or 6 weeks running, and I don't think it'll be going away anytime soon.
No, I mean, they're well spread. And Paul, you were saying you were down at the Tea Tree comp, and you said